welcome once again to our week, and the week goes on. But I tell you what, it's come to a stop. I'm sorry, I apologise to the viewers. We've got to mention, in some senses, rightly, Kate. But we have a different. Oh, I have a different take on it. But it was a bit of a shock. But it shouldn't have been. It was clearly obvious something a lot more serious than a hysterectomy was going on.
Yeah, I mean, for those of us ladies who have had a hysterectomy, you know how it pans out. You know the recovery time. And Kate is not a wimp. I mean, she's the sort of person that would be back in the game as soon as possible. And from when that started in January to you won't be back till Easter, that is like, being overprotective, if you like, as someone that might have a hysterectomy. But then it just became obvious there must be something. And I think she was right, because there's been so much supposition, so much making up of stories, all conspiracy stuff, all the rest of it. Is it this? Is it that? And really, I suppose there was a pressure on her to be open. I mean, nobody would ever normally have done that. Go back to the Queen's Day, they wouldn't. But I do think it's a bit over the top with the coverage. All we've had this morning is going over and over and over it. She said what she's got. You just pray that she gets to a good recovery for the sake of everybody, especially the little ones, the children. I think it was well timed that she said it at the start of the Easter holidays, because the children are, not subjected to going to school with comments from their schoolmates. But this is the media, isn't it? You see, I mean, I think they've gone more mental on this one than they did when the King came out and said something. And I mean, I think
vastly so. I mean, vastly this so.
And then there's Fergie. So there's 3 people in the royal family that have all got cancer, and that should be a lesson to all of us that money, power, position, illness does not choose just poor people. But I mean, she is under a lot of stress. If you think about it, she was not born up into the royal family. She's done a superb job in her role. There's all the stress that our Harry has caused the family, including her and William. And stress can cause and does cause cancers. So
yes, it does, and it certainly hinders recovery.
It does. And you just wonder how much, I suppose, the conspiracy theory I'm coming up with, I mean, I just think it's devastating news and very sad for everybody. And let's just hope she gets better. And that should be it.
Well, it should be, but you're right. Let's become a little unpopular this morning and say that this was announced, of course, yesterday. And in the first hour of GB News, our friends, that Kate video, which I thought was very good,
yes,
from her point of view, was actually shown 8 times in the first hour. Good. With the excuse, people are coming back from work. It's just an excuse. They love a disaster. They love to call out social media, probably quite rightly, because we do as well, because the trolling that's been going on has been quite disgusting.
Yes.
But they're just as bad, the mainstream media, in many
respects. They are. Could they all?
They're all in the same bin.
They all want the front page spread. They all want a slice of the action. They all want to be leader of the pack, don't they? To have, and to be honest, for the sake of the kids, the little ones, everybody else, they should just, it is what it is. And, many of us have had cancer in our families. Lots and lots of people in the public will have enormous sympathy, and that should be it now.
Yeah, well, look forward to it, people. 1 in 3 of us are going to get cancer.
No, that's
a nice thought, isn't it? So that's a fact. But over-egging it, which this clearly has been, and it'll go on for day after day after day. Sorry, let's follow the dear Americans. We have a good go at the Americans, don't we, often? Well, let's give them a tick. Because if a president in America gets something wrong with his nether regions, we're told in intimate detail the day before, as it were, which endoscope they're going to use. I mean, that, is the extreme. But they are forthcoming. And let me tell you, if this had been announced earlier, it would have been far better for everybody. If they'd done a King Charles, on Kate, then that would have sorted it out. But because they followed the traditional book, house, etc. protocols, then they've got in a mess like they did with the jiggering around with the photographs.
Well, you don't know. I mean, these cultures, when you have cancer tests, they can take some time to grow and get the results, can't they? So you couldn't really come out and say something in January after her
Well,
operation.
no, some of them now, most of them now, the T-scores and various things that do indicate come out in the matter of a few days.
Oh, do
It could
they?
have,
Right.
yeah, it
Yeah.
could have been done.
I
But
mean, but
that's
again, it's a difficult thing to process as well, isn't it? You know, you just wonder now. You see now the hairs will run about. Oh, and you wait. It won't be long before it's. Will Harry come back and take up the reins? This will run to like maybe Harry and Meghan will come back. You can just see. I mean, what is interesting is where is the Duke of Edinburgh and Sophie? You don't see them. He's got a role, Prince Edward, hasn't he? As the Duke.
Oh no, they're pushing them back more and more
Oh,
because
are they? Oh,
they
okay.
are very good people. They're very
Oh,
personal
yeah,
people.
they are. They're
And
lovely.
she especially is
She
very,
is
very
very
good.
lovely, very
So
lovely.
they've got, oh, it's the end of the monarchy. Rubbish. There's plenty of them there. Now, whether Fergie's kids come into this now, perhaps they can, but they've got a history, haven't they? Thanks to Dad.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it?
Mm. But no, there's enough of them. We're not going to go
Yeah,
short.
yeah, so it's all falling on William's shoulders at the moment, isn't it? You know, but this is where it would have been good for Harry and Meghan not to have gone to America. But I mean, he must be torn between a rock and a hard place, Harry, actually, because at the end of the day, he's now got his father, he's got his aunt, he's got his
Oh,
brother.
he's in an, yeah, it's the stop digging. If you're in a hole, it is now time to stop digging.
Absolutely.
Go away, do yourself a favor. But the other bottom line to all this, of course, and you can hardly find it in any newspaper, nearly 100, a lot of them young people, died in Moscow with
Exactly.
this dreadful firebombing and
I know.
automatic weapons, Kalashnikovs. And there's going to be a lot more before that story's finished. And it doesn't make page 9.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is amazing how they choose well, they choose, don't they, on the front pages what's going to sell the paper.
Yeah.
And in what order they put it. I mean, the editors last night must have been having a heart failure because the papers would have been almost ready to go out, wouldn't they? And then, oh, we got to change the front page. I mean, that can't be easy in the printing business, I suppose.
No, it's these things are usually, of course, organized where they can be.
Yeah.
But obviously they can't with an ISIS attack. That being said, again, there are lots of stories that are real stories that never get there because people are not or do not appear to be interested in them.
Yeah.
They don't make the headlines. None more so, can I say, than the amount of Christians in the last 12 months that have been killed. We as Christians have been the most persecuted religious denomination in the world by a country mile.
Wow.
It's going on the whole time, from India recently to Nigeria recently. And you say, as you're saying now, oh, because it's never highlighted. It's not the popular thing to do.
No.
And yeah, well, to tell you what, let's go on to something else that's not very popular. Well, with some people, the dear old England team and their jersey. Now, this is important.
Well,
we got the flag on the back. Now,
I think it's
if you see
that they've messed around with it.
Well, of course, it's appalling, but I tell you what, again, perspective comes into here. If you saw the original with the St. George's cross, the red cross on a white background, on the last strip, it's truly awful. It's a very thin line, the cross, and you could hardly see it. I'd have kicked off about the old kit, never mind. Oh, it's the 3 lions that are important. Any excuse. Nike, I've only got one thing in mind, and the FA, and that's dosh. The muzaka, the money the pasta. That's all it's about. And it's about woke. And can I tie this up with the previous item we've discussed? Are we truly a snowflake generation
Oh, for sure.
when we go over the top for something that's dreadful, but clearly right over the top? There are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people suffering with the same kind of cancer and don't get a second thought.
No.
This, well, dear old Gareth, he's the wokest football manager ever to be. Can I say that the England team that we've got now is the best in the world? It's recognised.
Yeah.
And as I said before the last international competition, tongue in cheek, because I really support England and I hope they do so well in the Europeans. But I'm saying, no, they'll never do any good with woke in charge. He's the wokest manager we've ever had. And it's all about OTT and woke, both stories that we're talking about. He's the last manager that said, oh, right, go on, you don't need to bend the knee, when bending the knee has been clearly outed for months and months and months, and our players were still stupidly bending the knee, wearing bootlaces of rainbow, and you can't win anything with somebody that's not got grit and down to earth.
Well,
now, I hope I'm
exactly
wrong. I will be delighted to be proved wrong, because England will win. Well, bet as a betting guy, which I'm not, I bet they don't.
But no, you can't. You can't. I mean, leaders, wherever it is, a leader has to have grit, determination, has to be prepared to be unpopular at some point, and because they have a driven belief that I've got to do it this way, and not everything can be actually discussed in front of a board of directors or something. Some things you have to make a decision on the hoof, don't you? You have to go with your gut instinct. You have to, and just hope and pray it's the right decision. If you're a real leader, it's not an easy task. Absolutely not, because the buck does really fall on you. It'd be very interesting to see what happens with the Euros.
Oh dear, which leads us on to something a bit tasty as well. I've decided I'm going to come back as a worm. If I believed in reincarnation, that is.
I don't want to come back. I don't want to come back.
Well, Joan, it's not got that bad, surely. Well, I'm not. Well, come back as a worm. I mean, that's almost. Well, it's from the fella's point of view, because if you're a woman, you can't go wrong. But if you're a fella, especially a white one, oh, you better watch it. You're not in fashion. I mean, we're going back to Diana Abbott, of course, and her contretemps with Mr. Hester and this joke. And it was a joke that, well, we all know the problem there. But let me remind you, about 10 years ago, Jo Brand, who I know is, she's ever so nice. She gets involved in a lot of things. A lot of people don't realise, especially mental health.
Oh, no, she's good.
Well done, her.
Yeah.
But she joked again about Nigel Farage. And she said if it was up to her, this was 10 years ago, she'd pour battery acid over him. Now, what is the difference? Nobody mentions anything. It was a joke. Have a laugh. Move on. But because the ladies are involved here, because it seems more fashionable to have a go, and it seems great for the Guardian newspaper to have a go and say, let's out this so we can get millions back from the Tory party, because they must be able to pay that money back that's been. It's a load of rubbish, more rubbish in our newspapers.
Well, my son always laughs at me because he's a Guardian buyer, yeah, and I get the Telegraph. I get the Telegraph because I actually like doing the crossword, but I only get the Saturday Telegraph. But I do find, like with the work you and I do, I find they get a lot of interesting articles about abuse, etc., which is of course the world I work in, which I feed through to you, and I would be. Yeah, no, I quite like the Telegraph. I do quite like that. And I just read it, take it for what it's worth. I don't You know, I don't believe much of what is written in the papers, quite honestly. But sometimes the articles they cover that are pertinent to my work, I prefer that to any of the others.
Well, I have to read The Guardian every day, and there are some good articles in The
Oh, they do
Guardian.
get some good articles.
It's
They do.
extremely slanted. And I read the Telegraph every day, and I read the Times, and I read the Mail, and there's no time for anything else, is there? But you've got to look at the background, the route of where they're getting the stories from. Are they left? Are they right? Who's feeding them? And in the Guardian case, of course, a lot of people are feeding them. There's no way they can carry on the way they do. So the left wing, the Marxist wing of this world are feeding the Guardian. As long as you appreciate that and can pick the good stuff from the bad stuff,
Well,
fine.
That's it.
Well, we've mentioned a couple of things there, 3 things there actually. But there's something again that's been confined to the mythical page 9, and that's the abortion bill that's been proposed by Labour. Surprise, surprise. In the UK, 24 weeks at the moment. The idea is to get it down to 22 weeks because babies are living a longer period in the womb. But the thing is to decriminalise it till term. Now, strangely, Northern Ireland have already got this. It's an open vote between all the parties. The feeling is at the moment that we'll introduce it, which is way ahead of every other country that I know about, probably even Canada now. Most of Europe are still on 12 weeks anyway, not 24 as we are. But decriminalising it, you've got problems. In the pandemic, of course, if you wanted an abortion, if you found yourself pregnant, you went and did a Zoom call with your doctor, ticked the box, and the tablets were sent through the post. They've actually now put that into law, and you still can do that. Now, imagine going for 20 odd weeks.
Oh, that.
I mean, it's not safe at all.
No, not safe, because you are talking of
But you can lie, you see. I'm online. You wouldn't see me belly.
Yeah, but I mean that I do think at that stage, 24 weeks, you are really you're looking at a baby, aren't you? It's not. I mean, it's a baby from the moment it's conceived, but you are, you know, then it's just like a little cell that's breaking.
From 12 weeks, it's wholly visible.
I know, because I lost one at 5.5 months. My first baby, I lost. Yeah, it was 22 weeks when I lost it, and it was a little boy. So. Yeah, I wouldn't be wanting. I mean, I don't think you can criminalize abortion at all. I think a woman has the right to, it's her conscience, it's her decision. There are so many children that are born who would have been better had they not been born to some parents. Too many people use children as a financial commodity to get themselves a council house or something, and you have baby after baby after baby. The next thing they got 7 kids. They don't bring them up properly. They can't bring them up. You know, they just can't. It's not possible. And then they're living off the state, and so it goes on. But if you don't want a baby for good reason, it could be financial. It could be that you get what do you call it, preeclampsia later on. You know, which is death threat for the mother as well as the baby. If you've been raped, if you know, all sorts of reasons why the woman might decide she doesn't want to have the baby. And I would find it difficult. That's just I couldn't do it, but then that's my personal belief. And you know, I think if I was raped, I wouldn't want it. I'm sure I wouldn't want it. But I think it is every individual woman's decision, quite honestly. And
very, very difficult subject.
It is difficult. It's very emotive. It's a very emotive subject. But I do think women have the right to decide what happens to their own bodies or not. And
well, yeah, the vote. People sometimes say that the baby, of course, hasn't got a vote, but the mother has.
Well,
Why should the baby have a vote? Well, depends what you think a fully formed human being is and what rights should be given to the baby. We're in the day and age of rights. Everybody gets their rights and not responsibilities. Now, whether we should put that under the same topic that we're talking about now, it's very difficult. Well,
well,
we'll ask
I
our
asked,
viewers
funny
to tell
enough,
us.
I asked our lawyer about, fetal alcohol syndrome, FASD, right? So if you drink when you're pregnant, then, I mean, this is FASD syndrome, fetal alcohol syndrome is 100% avoidable. 100%. And it comes out in the baby, the features look different, the ears are set lower, there's no thing here, it's flat, there's all sorts of things that are facially recognizable, identifiable, and you can think the child has got autism, and it's 100% preventable if you don't drink when you're pregnant. Now, I asked our lawyer if you were a child with FASD, because it is the 100% wholly the mother's fault, could the child sue the mother? And I was told no. So I found that really quite interesting, because I thought you did this to me, and look at me now, and you drank when you were pregnant. And I actually asked my daughter-in-law, because when I sort of discovered all this, it wasn't very long ago, actually, it was about 2 years ago, I asked her, I said, well, you've on the verge of having another baby. What do your midwives say? Do they tell you, they just say don't drink. But I said, do they tell you why you shouldn't drink? They don't tell you why you shouldn't drink. No, they just say, don't drink, best not to drink. Well, they should be, I think that should be a firmer message. But I do think if I would feel bitter towards my mother if she drank when she was pregnant with me, and now I've got all these conditions which is known as FASD, and that's 100% preventable.
Yeah, again a difficulty, but don't bring any more lawyers into the world is my response to that. We've got enough. Well, yes, yeah. Well, for some strange reason, we've had a lot of friends over the years that have had Down syndrome's children.
Yes.
And Down syndrome is first in the line to be shot before birth. Sometimes, dare I say, infanticide after birth. It has been noted and known. That is awful. Not just for Down syndrome either. But the children are such a blessing. Yes, they're hard work, but these kids, by and large, are completely without guile.
Oh, absolutely.
Lovely people. You get what you see. They're not hiding anything.
Exactly.
And they're a real blessing to mum and dad and society.
I used to teach a little girl with Down syndrome, and she was actually in a mainstream school, in a secondary school, and she was incredible. In fact, I was frightened for her because she was so loving and so affectionate that in the wrong situation, it must be terribly difficult managing that, because that is part of their persona. They're very, very loving. Also, I had a cousin who had Down syndrome, and he lived to be 65. And my children loved it when he came round, because he was an adult playing their child games. And they were like, oh, Johnny's great. Johnny's great. He's like, and I used to have to say to them, yeah. Then when they got older, I had to say, well, that is Johnny. Johnny has this condition, blah, blah, blah. But they loved him because he was, he was mentally like them. But again, he was a very harmless, loving guy. There was no edge to him at all. He wasn't violent. You can't, I mean, and this girl I taught in the school, I mean, she started learning piano as well. There's lots of people that should not just be pushed to one side because they are different.
Yeah, there you go. Talking about guile, let's talk about real guile of a couple. And let me say this may sound like an isolated incident, but it's not. If you're in Gloucester, apparently this couple is, you can go to social services and say, please, can I have an emotionally compromised
Oh,
child, and we'll be foster parents or whatever for them. And of course, getting placement for a child that is emotionally disturbed is not easy. So you can say, oh, well, there you go. We've got somebody that'll take this problem off our hands. And apparently they went through quite a few children, and they were cruelly treated.
yeah, no, it's dreadful. But I mean, but you know, it's amazing how these people get through the checks and balances, because from what I've heard of with people that go through adoption, the questions, not just the couple, but you as a friend are also interviewed as to what you think the relationship is. What do you think their intimate life is like? Well, goodness me. I mean, how would anyone know? But they do a lot of scrutiny for the adoptions. And you think, how did that get to a stage where they had been through so many? You know, but it's not the first time. I've seen this in foster carers where, you know, and I think foster carers, don't get it right, 98% of them are absolutely down the line doing an angelic job looking after these children. But you will get the 2% who are the dodgy ones. They know that child is vulnerable. They're no more vulnerable than emotionally problematic. And there you have it. The abuser is attracted like a magnet to the vulnerable child. And that's why you should be more, the scrutiny should be even deeper, I think, particularly if you're asking, you know, to take, and I'm sure you're right. I'm sure they thought, oh, wow, what a splendid couple. We're reducing our list here of children with issues. And, you know, but again, how do you work that one through? Because those children, this is the trouble with adoption, and this is going back to the thing again about abortion. If you could have the child adopted immediately, yeah, I don't want the baby, I'm happy to have the baby, but I want to give it away. If you could adopt a baby, the incidences of vulnerability in a child would be infinitely less. But that doesn't happen here. The child has to go through foster care first, and you'll get foster carers that only want newborns. And so when it gets to a certain stage, that baby goes on to a foster carer who only wants children from, say, 4 months to 10 months, and then it goes on. So then they're shoved from one to another, and the damage starts ticking away and the trauma starts happening. So by the time you get to adoption, you are already, whether you like it or not, you are adopting a child who has got trauma in that brain that will manifest maybe when they're 10, 11 years old. And I do think they should be, it is ridiculous now, it's almost impossible to actually adopt a baby under 6 weeks, under 6 months, under 2 years even. And
bureaucracy gets in the way about lots of things.
Absolutely. But I was I surprised when I read it? No, because I've seen it happen before. I've heard it's happened before over the years by doing this work. There was a foster carer once, and the mother said nothing, but the dad, they had brothers and sisters come and stay with them, fostered with them, and he would take the boys and the girls into the shower with him, and they were like at the height of his private parts, and these kids had to wash him and everything, right? And that went on for a long time, and that's going back about 10, 11 years now. You know, I mean, you're always going to get it's like anything, isn't it? You are going to get the rogue. Any situation, you're going to get it. So I was listening to the NHS situation yesterday with Lucy Letby.
I was going to say this will happen again, and Lucy Letby is going to happen again, according to senior clinicians.
Exactly. The clinicians that were ignored. And I was actually training NHS yesterday, and we were talking, funnily enough, we were actually talking about whistleblowing on the call that I was doing. And as I was talking, the Sky breaking news came in on my news feed. And I said, well, isn't that amazing? They must have been listening to us, because read this. And I said, you know, And then there was a guy though who was or had been a doctor, and he was saying that basically the NHS is a cartel, and it's completely people at the top in their cozy positions, etc., etc. And I said, yeah, but all big organizations are. You could say that about the church. You could say that, look, about the post office. The people at the top turn a blind eye. You can say it about education. Department of Education, Ofsted, kick them out, kick them into the long grass. They're useless. And the people at the top have got protected jobs and they don't breathe the same oxygen as us. So, yes, the NHS are going to get more of this unless they really come down heavily on better protection of legislation for whistleblowers. And that's going to be across all big organizations, the BBC, you name it. There is always a level beyond which we don't want to know. That's not our remit.
Right.
Police is another one.
Well, yes, and ITV allegedly are another one. And back to my come back as a worm theory, they have now decided, apparently in this conference in India, to not appoint any more newsreaders if they're white and male. We've got to go for the alternatives because there's too many white males that read the news. Now, it's got to be confirmed, but it's come from a good source. Even ITV have gone down the diversity, inclusivity, inequality route, which has been highlighted, of course, this last week by Ms. Badenoch, and said, new report from a very eminent body. They've actually said, not only is DEI stupid, it actually causes more problems. So all these big departments in the NHS and in all the big companies are actually contributing to the demise of the company. Not that you can demise more than the NHS. Get rid of these people.
Well, the trouble is, there are time and again situations where people are employed because of their ethnicity, yeah? And it shouldn't matter what colour you are. You could be green with yellow spots on. If you can't do the job, then you stand aside and let somebody in who's pink with blue stripes in. It doesn't matter what colour, it doesn't matter what creed you are. You're either competent for the job or you're not. And if we don't have enough competency within the ethnic groups, whatever, then we can't be diverse and inclusive, can we?
No, exactly, which takes us on to something very similar. We've had euphemisms about manhole covers for years, Why isn't it called a person hole cover? That was the first thing to happen, or a woman hole cover. Now it's back to the blackboards. I remember this coming in a decade ago, actually. But the modern way of calling a blackboard or a whiteboard, of course, as it is now, is a chalkboard. That's what we've got to a chalkboard.
But the chalk
that's gone. Perhaps
chalk and
gone
chalk went
your
out
country.
years ago.
Yes.
They don't use chalkboards. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, you have a whiteboard that the schools use, so we can't call it that anymore. What do we? I mean, it is not racist to call it a blackboard. It is the colour black.
Well, do you remember the days when we used to politely call a foreigner coloured?
Yes.
And then suddenly that was a wicked word. Yes. I'm black. You've got to call me black. I mean, this is just fashion. And the diversity, equality, and ignoramusosity. It's just fashion.
Most of them are brown, not black.
Yes.
I mean, I don't understand. And we're not white. We're shades of pink, quite honestly. I mean, you look at it when I was teaching music, like piano, you looked at the back of the children's hands, and it used to really amaze me how many different shades of pink. We are not white. It is. We're just human beings. People get so hooked on this.
Some of them are. Some of us are. Listen, TikTok. Listen, mate, Cross. We're always going on about mobile phones and social media. Well, TikTok are in grave danger. They're about to be sacked in the US because, of course, it's a tool, an arm of China. They invented it, and they're getting from 170 million, mainly young people in America, all their information. It's like having a spy in every barracks in the country. And Donald Trump, strangely, has changed his mind, because when if he gets back in, he says, well, I'm going to allow them to carry on. Now, I wonder why. What does he know that we don't know? But there again, even the Democrats, who have been very open about this, are now saying in America, oh, yeah, we got to call this. There are plenty of other social media out there. Perhaps they're backed by Facebook, who are going to take all the hoovering up of all this stuff. TikTok, maybe for good reasons, I don't know. You can put lots of the other major people on social, if you look into their background, like Telegram. Lots of young kids have gone to Telegram these days. But I tell you what, it's very insecure, and you are bound to get a threat or a hacking very quickly. We tried it, and within a week they had a go at us. So be very wary of Telegram, especially if you're a company or in the media yourselves, and they see a way of getting at you, because they'll find it. They'll find the cracks. Yeah. So we're in new times, aren't we?
Well, yeah, I just don't. New times or not, I don't do social media. I really don't like it. I like to stay private. I don't want people trolling me. So I mean, the charity does it, but I don't do it. You know, I have somebody who does it for me, because she does, but I don't do it. I just don't see the point of it. I mean, you know, washing your dirty linen out in public, and oh, I've just had a row with my mother and all of that. Why? Who wants to know? Who wants to know? I just don't enjoy it at all. It's nothing but a problem.
I can understand it. It's great for if you have a family site. Facebook, if you have a family site, is great. We can keep in touch with.
Well, the safest one, of course, is WhatsApp, because Facebook's got no it's got no real security. WhatsApp is better. WhatsApp and what's the other one? WhatsApp and Signal. Yeah, that's another one. It's encrypted. They are the safer ones. Facebook is a Christmas present to paedophiles, because they can go in and strip out the back of photographs. They can get any photos they want, airbrush them into the different category images. So I would urge anyone, come off Facebook, use WhatsApp or Signal.
There you go. Yeah.
Or Wire. That's the other one.
Well, I hope you're sitting comfortably, because I've got a story to tell you, and it comes from North Devon. And it's about a church clock in North Devon. It's been going 150 years. That's good for a church clock. St. John the Baptist, Weatheridge in North Devon. And it's been chiming every quarter of an hour, day and night. And the people love it. Except one person that's moved into the village doesn't love it. One. There are 300 other people that have written to the town village council and said, we want to maintain this. It's gorgeous. Oh, no, it's keeping me awake at night. Well, the first thing I think about, get some blooming earmuffs. But there you go. The council have acquiesced, because they have got, you'll like this, inverted commas, a council environmental protection scheme, and the men and women that go into making that. So they give it to these teams that have got nothing to do, and they come out with a possible solution.
Which is?
So the big watch, called the clock, has been retimed. And between 7 o'clock in the morning and 11 o'clock at night, it can chime, but only on the hour. And then it's quiet for the rest of the night. Now, in a democracy, Marilyn, will you tell me at 300 to 1, which is the biggest overall victory for anything I've ever seen?
You know, I'm not being funny. If you move into a village where you know there's a chiming church clock, or you know you've got pealing bells, best that you don't move in then, because we've got it here. So in our village, we've got a lovely little old church. It's 700 years old, and it has pealing bells, right? So we have 170 people that live in the village, and one person moved in and complained about the chimes on a Sunday morning, right? Which I love. I think it's quintessentially English to hear the pealing bells on a Sunday morning, or when they rehearse on a Thursday night. I just think it's beautiful. If you don't like it, then don't buy a house that's opposite the church. So Big Hooey's kicks off, and then what they had to do, and they didn't stop chiming them, but instead of doing a full peal, they do a quarter peal to appease this person, and they don't actually ring them till 10:30 on a Sunday morning, so it's not like 8 o'clock. It doesn't chime at all during the day at all. It's just the peal, right? So now they've had to put the buffers. You know how you have these slats up in the belfry? You have these slats to let the noise out, and so they've had to like close those down for the benefit of one person. Honestly, it does my head in, because you knew when you bought the house, you were opposite a church with a pealing bell. I mean, how to make yourself unpopular.
Indeed. Listen, we've got to stick with councils finally, and we've got to go into something. And you know, when we have change in society, it's usually done through the back door. It's not the big headline.
Oh yeah,
it's the crafty beggars that get some clever lawyer, yeah, and they see a way around that and sneakily bring in a new law. Well, it's been brought in. For some times now, local councils have had the right to fine the motorist. And nearly half of the UK is under this, but it's getting out of hand because a lot of the councils have outsourced fining people. They don't want to give their own employees a high-vis jacket with a whistle, even though there's a queue for that many. They've outsourced this, and of course it's funded, and the more motorists you book, the better it is, and you go over the top to find every motorist. So, as an example, it applies to box junctions, some of which are quite old. You can't park in a box junction or stop your vehicle in a box junction because some of them are too big for whatever reason, whether they've altered the curbs or whether some clown has come along and drawn it too big in the first place, and it's become a traffic hazard, and nothing moves until you put your front wheels over the edge of the box. Of course, there's a high-vis job person booking you and fining you £75 on the spot, unless some councils say that if you pay immediately in the first 20 days, we'll let you off with half. No such thing about being let off, even if though you are innocent. It applies to parking on bicycle lanes. Now, I tried to think about this. I don't know a bicycle lane you can park on.
no,
But then again, it applies to them. They're looking for any way to increase their revenue because they're strapped. But there again, the innocent motorist is got at once more.
It's just money. It truly is. It is all to do with how can you get the revenue up. It's true. You can't get away from it. But the box thing, yes, I was caught on that. Ages ago now. I literally my back tire was just a little bit into the box, and I got done on that as well. And I just said, oh, for goodness sake, you know. I think they're a good idea, to be honest, because otherwise junctions would just get chopped up.
Yes, in principle, but I mean, you've got to have some leeway here. It applies to bus lanes, of course, and one-way streets.
Yeah.
So no excuse if you go down a one-way street, you're immediately jumped on. But it's the way of funding the coffers that worries me, because we've had a lot of bad experience in Spain, especially. They were first on the line. Spain is brilliant place, that's why we're here, and in Portugal, etc. But certain things are naughty, and every single Christmas they run out of money and they want to give Christmas presents. This is the police, and boy, you don't go out on the road for the fortnight surrounding front and back of Christmas if you've any sense. They will pick you up for everything.
I know.
The favourite thing, of course, in Spain here is they poke their head through the window. Oh, you're wearing flip-flops. That's illegal. Well, I can understand the occasion you might get your foot trapped in the pedal, but in a hot
Absolutely.
country, but that's the quickest way they get you.
I think here it's £1,000 fine if you're driving with flip-flops.
Oh, golly.
Oh yeah, it's a big fine. It is a big fine. Yeah. And I think that's right, because that does happen. That does happen, and it is dangerous. So yeah, it's a very high fine for doing that, without a
Well, if
doubt.
you like your drinking, Spain and Portugal are the place to come to, because
Now, I've
you
got to
don't
ask.
automatically get banned. There's you have to be a true criminal before they have you.
I was going to mention, because we haven't mentioned it at the moment, the migrant situation. Now, I read, and maybe a misquote in the papers, because we don't believe all we read, but I read that
Portugal, you're going to say, aren't you?
Portugal
Yes.
has got over 710,000 immigrants that have gone in there, which is, because I know when we lived there, their whole population was 9 million. And it's taken the numbers now with what's coming in to over 11 million. And we had the other day 513 people in one day, 2 days ago it was, come in. I mean, where are they all going? 5,000 to Rwanda. Oh, that's going to make a difference if it ever gets underway. But I was quite surprised. I was surprised. That's a lot of. I mean, of course, it's so close, isn't it, to Africa? There, easier to get across.
Yeah.
Because I think when we lived in Portugal, we saw the start of that. There were quite a lot of Romanians coming over. And I don't wish to be in any way, I'm not racist, but that was when the cafes started being broken into at night. People's villas were broken into, televisions were taken. And it was when we first went to Portugal, you could just leave your front door open. There was,
No, these are facts. Regrettably, there are a number of Eastern European countries that are split into two. And we've got quite a few Romanian friends, actually, and they'd be lovely people.
Yeah.
But the other half, oh my goodness me, they're famous for their theft, let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
And if you're letting people in, as certainly the United Kingdom is, although I have been sent footage which I'm 99% sure is absolutely correct, we're nothing compared with what the Americans are up to. In New York City, there's the most immense, and nobody gets hold of this, we've got the footage, village. No, it's practically a town of tents. You walk in these tents and it's full of thousands upon thousands of illegal migrants worldwide. In tents, we wouldn't do that in Britain. We'd put them in 4-star hotels, of course, or posh barges or whatever. But there they are in tents in New York in January, February, which this footage is from.
Wow.
It's quite cold, to say the least. But they've got massive auxiliary electric stations, massive blocks of toilets. You could put them in the toilets and it would.
So where were they coming in from then? Because I know there's the Mexican border.
Oh yes, a lot from Mexico.
Yeah.
But it's been kept under wraps. Nobody's allowed anywhere near it. The guy that I got the footage from snuck his mobile phone in there and just walked through. Mobile phones are very handy. I mean,
they are for that. I agree. Surveillance, absolutely.
We used to take our smallest cameras out. You don't need to at the moment. You take your very good mobile phone out. You point the camera in the opposite direction, or whichever way it works best in. And they think you're talking on the phone. Oh, no, we've got lovely footage. So there you go. Praise to the mobile phone. After all, listen, we got to go. Time is gone.
Well, have a lovely week. I'm very sorry this was Saturday, not earlier, but, jet lag.
She's been away again. She goes 4 times a year now. I've been counting. But at least she works. We get her. And she finished up on a boat. I've got to say this before we go, to see the whales. Is that true?
It was true. And it was just unbelievable how you just see, you're scanning, and you see the spout of water, and then the water goes flat and almost bubbly, then up comes the bridge back of the whale, and then it was spectacular, absolutely spectacular. So we saw one on the boat, and then the big tail fin. It was too close for comfort because they're big, aren't they, you know? And the boat was big, but then we went back to shore, and we were sat in a beautiful restaurant just overlooking at Coral Beach, beautiful pale pink sand, watching and just having lunch there. Over 2 hours we saw 20 whales. Unbelievable. And I think they all go, they're the humpback whales, and they go, I think, up to Nova Scotia, I think, to mate. But how many of them must have been going in, swimming in their pods, because we were there for 2 hours and we saw 20. So it's an extraordinary sight.
Well, for those people who won't travel to Nova Scotia to mate, we wish you a good week. She no longer counts sheep. She counts whales now at night. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Bye-bye.